Hey everyone, my name is Josh Cook and I'm super excited to be talking today at the Virtual Scottish Summit 2021. I'm going to be talking about Power Automate and the basics in air handling. So let's get started. Our sponsors. So without our sponsors, this event would not be possible. And that's ScriptRunner, DQ Global, Proximo, Redspire, Agilisys, and Hitachi Solutions. Again, shout out to these guys. Without them, this would not be possible. So a little bit about me. Again, my name is Josh Cook and I'm an integration developer working at an energy company in Canada, Alberta. I'm a Microsoft Business Applications MVP and I spend most of my time on the community forums. In the Power Automate community forum, earning me a super user there, and the Power Virtual Agents community forum, earning me a super user there as well. I'm the first dual super user in Power Automate and Power Virtual Agents. Check me out on the community forums at @jcook. Also, scan my QR code where you can get links to all my social media, my Twitter, my LinkedIn, my blog, and also the community forums. The QR code will also be at the bottom and on the bottom left of each slide in case you missed it here. So let's talk a little bit about me personally, and the biggest thing is I have ADHD. And what is ADHD? Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. What does that mean? It means my storytelling is going to be like the one you see in the bottom there. It's a really fun path to go, trust me. But I'm going to stick to the very top one just because that's the majority of the audience. But again, think about how fun the bottom path is. It's really fun. So about a couple years ago, I coded a blockchain for the school I was actually attending. And that was probably my first big coding project. It was so much fun. I was like the only one in the whole school that knew anything about blockchain. And cryptocurrencies. I bought into a bunch of cryptocurrencies when I was a couple of years ago. So I'm not rich or anything. I do have a couple of coins here and there, but I'm not rich. It's not that fun. So I also like looking into space. I have a telescope. I plan on getting a couple more once the weather here in Canada turns a little bit nicer. But I love looking at space. It's so much fun. I love doing it with my son. I have a 3-year-old. He loves looking into it as well. And hopefully this is something that we can do together as he grows up. With gaming, now I got a Xbox Project Scorpio, Xbox One X, when it first came out, and that was like a limited edition one. And I don't know what came across me, but anyway, the beginning of the story is that I used to game with my friends all the time, like 12 hours straight. And then I got married, and then again I had my son. He's 3 now, so the friends I used to play with don't really talk anymore, and I kind of actually sold my Xbox, so maybe I should buy it again and get back into gaming. So now on to our agenda. So what are we going to learn about today? We're going to learn about what is air handling. And to learn about what is air handling, you know what we need to know first? What is try-catch finally? And we're going to learn about why we should use it, and then we're going to get to the fun part, which is the demo. So what is air handling? Well, I like to treat all my airs like I do my Pokemon. I catch them all. I love catching them. I gotta have them all. I love airs. So air handling, like what does that even mean? What does catching an error mean? It means acknowledging the error. So you don't want to build your flow like you think that nothing will ever fail. Maybe you've done a lot of testing on that flow. You're like, it's not going to fail. But I'll tell you one thing, it will fail. Maybe it won't fail now. It might not fail in a month, but it might fail in a couple of months when you totally forget about this flow. And that's where the errors are going to start coming, and that's when you're going to have a hard time figuring out what to do. Logic to deal with the error. Now, you might want to log this error in like a SharePoint list. Maybe you want to send an email out to the support team, or you want to get an email when your flow fails. Regardless of what happens, you want to deal with that error. You don't want to just have that error in the flow and forget about it. You can't just sweep that error underneath the rug. It's going to come back and get you. So you might as well deal with it. And lastly, gracefully finish the run. Now what does that mean? It's kind of going off the second point where you're logging the error or you're sending in a support email. In my mind, if you're doing that and you're catching that error and handling that error, that's a graceful finish. That's a successful run in my eyes, because you're not just sweeping it under the rug, you're catching it and you're handling it in a proper way. So what is try-catch finally? So I come from a coding background, or a pro dev background, if that's what you want to call it. But in pro dev or coding, you actually, try-catch finally is a very known structure where you have a try block, a catch block, and a finally block. And in that block, you have certain actions or code that you're running. Now, if you don't have any error handling at all in any of your flows, the try would basically be your whole flow, because the try is the initial steps that you want to run in that workflow. So yeah, if you don't have any actions in your flow, the try is basically your whole flow, because you're trying to do that whole thing, that whole process. Now, what is the catch block? Well, the catch is basically catching any errors that happen in the try block. So again, if like this will be something added on after, where you're trying something, and if something happens, like an error or some data quality issues, an error is going to happen. It's going to throw an error. Maybe you get a 404, maybe you get a something, and then it's going to basically, if you have no error handling, it's just going to crap out. But what you want to do is you want to have that catch block. That's going to catch anything from try. Maybe you want to do something after, like finally. Not many people use finally, but in my opinion, finally is very, very needed in this try-catch structure, because basically you want to have something to do after you catch the error. You catch the error, maybe you're going to handle that error in a finally, because finally is going to run regardless of what happens. So let's talk about try-catch finally. You probably already use a try-catch finally structure in your life without even knowing it, and I can give a great example on this right here. So now that my example is actually post-COVID, post-pandemic. So after this pandemic's over, I'm going on a vacation, and I'm going to buy those plane tickets, and I'm going to go. I hope everyone on the call goes on a nice vacation too. So we're going to buy those plane tickets. Now, when I buy those plane tickets, the day comes, I'm going to go and get on that plane. I'm going to fly. I'm going to Mexico. I'm going somewhere awesome. I'm going to go to Bora Bora, somewhere. But wherever it is, I got to get on that plane and fly. Now, where am I flying to? My destination. I'm going to that beach vacation. I'm going to Bora Bora. I'm going to Mexico. I'm going somewhere awesome. Now, that sounds all great. That sounds easy. But, this is post-pandemic. So there's going to be a lot of people going and trying to get on this vacation. I buy those plane tickets. I forget about it. But that's actually where the try-catch finally happens here. Because there's a couple of errors that we can catch. See, I buy those plane tickets, but I might not check my email and check the confirmation. Maybe I don't even check my email at all. Maybe I just go to the airport on that day and find out that my flight's overbooked, and now that I don't have a flight. Maybe my flight's canceled. Maybe something happened. I don't know what it is. I didn't account for it, and that's the issue, right? I didn't account for it. Now, in a try-catch finally, if I were to catch that error and handle that error, I would still be able to get to my destination, right? If it was overbooked, I could have found another flight. But if I didn't check my email and I didn't know about this, I'm not going to my beach vacation. So, my try is I'm trying to get to my beach vacation. And if any errors happen, I'm catching those errors. And if no errors happen, that's great. But regardless, and this is the finally, regardless of what happens, I want to get to my beach vacation. Now again, I have to catch and handle those things properly, otherwise I'm not getting there. So why should we use it? So I want anybody in the chat, raise your hand, comment yes, do something, let me know. Have you guys seen this email before? Because I have. And here's a little quick story. So again, if you remember a couple slides back, I mentioned I was a pro dev. And, I've, to be completely honest, when I first found out about Power Automate, or Microsoft Flow at the time, I kind of shrugged error handling off. I was like, I don't need to know this. Why do I need to do this? It's low code, no code, right? Low code, no code. We don't need to do this. Yeah, boy, was I wrong. You need to do it. See, I was relying on these emails. And again, comment down below. Comment. Say it somewhere. That have you ever relied on these emails? If you haven't, also let me know. I want to know, because you know what? Maybe I was too naive. I used to love these emails. I used to be like, oh, that's awesome. My flow has failed. Microsoft's telling me, Microsoft, yeah. And, I found out, so this is a couple of flows that I had built. It was like one of my first flows that I built in the company I was working for. And, It's a funny story. So I didn't build any air handling in there. You know, my stuff ain't gonna fail, right? I'm pro dev here. My stuff ain't gonna fail. Yeah, no, it's gonna fail. So when it did fail, it failed on a Wednesday. Now, I didn't know that it failed. You know what I did know? When I got this email 3 days later on Friday afternoon, and now I had to go in and I had to fix so many things, and you know I had to do it fast too. You know, I don't want to have to work on Saturday. You guys want to work on Saturday? I don't. Maybe you have to. You know, I'm sorry about that, but I didn't want to work on Saturday. And you know, if I would have implemented error handling at the beginning, this wouldn't have been a problem, and I would have been able to fix it on the fly just like that. But because I didn't, and I waited, and I didn't even know my flow was failing until this email came, you know, it's kind of just setting yourself up for failure. Another thing to note is, I believe you only get this email if you're the owner of the flow. I don't even think co-owners get this email. I don't know. I don't rely on these anymore. I see them, I delete them. So why should we use it again? Why should we use it? There's more than one reason. Because your flow is going to fail, and your flow might look like this. And if it does, then you know how to throw exceptions. Exceptions means throwing an error. So that's what you're throwing. You're throwing errors. But you need to know how to handle those errors. Because if you don't, it's going to bite you. It's going to bite you hard when you don't realize it. So let's get a general overview of why we should use it. Saves money. That's pretty self-explanatory. When you can handle errors and you can send alerts when errors happen on the fly instead of waiting until 10 queue up or you get an email from Microsoft saying your flow's failed, if you can deal with it on as it comes, it'll make your life a lot easier, and you'll be able to handle it a lot easier, faster as well, saving money for everybody. And you can monitor your flows. So again, you can log, if there's an error that happens, you can log it in a SharePoint list. You can send it to a support email. You can get the email, however you want to do it, however your organization does it. It's basically a monitor. You can monitor your flow failures, your flow succeeded. You can monitor anything. You just have to know how to build the structure, which we'll get to in a second. So you all know about this. Happy stakeholders. So no stakeholder is going to want to have no confidence in if there's an error or not. You don't want your stakeholders coming to you when there's an error. You want to find out before them. If you can find out that there's an error before them, they're going to like you because it shows initiative that you're there. You're monitoring the flow. You're saving the money. You want to send those alerts. Again, with the it's kind of working with the monitoring the flows. If you can send the alerts and get notified right away, you can even let the stakeholders know that there's an error. Maybe they'll be able to go in and actually fix the error themselves. Maybe they're uploading some bad data. And then you're sending them an alert saying, hey, this is bad data. Try uploading some good data, right? And then it works. So alerts can be very helpful. Don't think of it like as a waste of time. Alerts, on par with everything. I love alerts. Demo time. Best time, right? Let's get on with the demo. Alright, so let's go take a look at the use case. So this is coming from a long time ago in my organization, but basically this is why you should implement error handling. This is long story short. I built this huge Power App, and the stakeholders, nobody had access. No one. There was like over 300 people. Nobody had access to the environments. Nobody had Power Apps or Microsoft Flow or Power Automate licensing at the time. And it was a very manual process to get these people in the environment and licensing assigned. So what we did is we had a security group set up. Now, I had set one up. We added them to the security group, and we associated the licensing to that security group. And then nowadays, actually, you can even assign that security group to the environment. So, you know, wow, everybody can just be assigned. But back then, you couldn't do that. So for this use case, though, what is happening is we're adding people to this group, and then it's giving them licensing, adding the environment, you know, all that great stuff. The problem is, so here's how we built it. So we had a Microsoft form. I'm like, hey guys, you know, just add the email addresses in here separated by a semicolon, because there was tons of users. I was getting emails probably like twice a day with like 20 users each time. Hey Josh, can you add these guys to the environment? Hey Josh, these guys need licensing. It became a second job really to add all these people, and At the time, it was like, I'm going to automate this. This is going to be great. I'm going to save so much time for myself. So I did. I automated it. So what I did is I built this form. I said, hey guys, fill it out. You can fill this out. It'll do everything for you. So let's look at the flow. So this flow is triggered on when a new response is submitted. That's a standard forms trigger. And this action here, get response details, always has to come after that trigger for the form, which is basically just getting all the answers that the user is inputting. Now there's only one question with my form, so I'm only having to do one thing here. I'm using a compose shape to use an expression. This expression is called split. I'm just splitting that answer from the user in that question. I'm just splitting that whole string. I'm separated by the semicolon. So now, if the person put 5 emails in there separated by a semicolon, I'm now getting 5 individual email addresses to put in my apply to each loop right here. Now, why is this important? Because now I can do things per user, per email that's happening, right? So I'm just going to get the user profile in my Office 365 users. Now I'm doing this so I get the UPN so I can confirm that they do exist in my organization. I do not want to add people or give licensing to people that are outside my organization, as well as it might not even work. I'm doing that, and then I'm adding them to that group that I showed you in Azure right here. We're adding them to this group. And again, this group is controlled for the licensing, and it can be controlled for a security group to be put in to the environment, so whoever's in that security group has access to the environment. So basically, it's a huge access thing. So going back to the flow here. Now if I go down, it's a pretty simple flow. See, now at the very end, I'm just sending an email to the responder, whoever's responding to this form, and I'm saying, hey, all these email addresses that you sent, yeah, they've all been added to the group. Perfect. Now the problem is that if a user types in, or if he has like 50 emails and he's typing all this stuff in, and they forget to put a semicolon in between one of them, or they spelt one of their names wrong, the email's wrong, or something's wrong, and it causes this whole flow to kind of fail. And the problem is that nobody knows it's failing. Now, maybe the person's not getting an email like, oh, hey, also is getting added, but you know what? That's not really a confirmation. Because as you can see, it's literally just taking all those email addresses and sending it to the user. He's like, hey, all these people have been added. It might not even be true. They might not have all been added. Maybe 1 or 2. Maybe none of them got added. Maybe they're not even getting this email alert at all. Now, how can we fix this? Because I'll tell you, this flow failed for like 5-10 times, and again, this is that flow where it failed on a Wednesday, and I'm doing a bunch of work on Friday now, trying to figure out who has licensing, who has access to the environment. I have no idea. I have to cross-reference. It was annoying. So how can I give? And I didn't want to have to do this manual work for myself because I just tried automating it. So how can I automate this for real and give access to the stakeholders to actually do everything themselves? If they screw up on something, if they type in bad data, how can I give them the permission or them the access to know what's going on so they can resubmit it, right? Like if it's just an error on typing, do I really need to be involved, or can the people that are actually typing and using the form, could they fix the error? And that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to, instead of grabbing this flow and kind of do all the magic here, we do have a lot of time left, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to build this from scratch with error handling attached. So again, look at this flow. It looks very simple, and it is simple. I'm going to build this whole flow from scratch with error handling attached to it. So let's get into it. So right here, I do want to show one thing first, though. I want to show try catch finally, just to, like what it is, right? Because some of you might be like, what is this guy even talking about? Well, he hasn't even showed us what it is yet. So I'll show you what it is. So in Flow here for Power Automate, the way we use try catch finally, we use scopes. Now there's 2 ways to get to scopes. You can click on the control icon here as soon as you click on action, and it's scope. Now what is a scope? A scope, you can hold actions inside a scope. So you can group actions together. Now you don't have to use this for error handling. You can use scopes just for easier readability, right? If you have a bunch of different actions, you can put them all together in this scope. Scopes are awesome. So let me just rename this scope. I'm going to put scope and I'll put try, right? Because we need try, catch, and finally. So a couple ways, actually another way you can do it too, like you can copy right here, 3 dots copy, and now if I hit next step, if I just go to my clipboard, bam, it's right there. I clicked it twice, so it's there. But so now I just want to rename this one to catch. And then the last way to get to the scopes is literally just typing scope in the new action. And it's right there. So I'm going to hit scope, and now we're going to do scope finally. So now we have try catch finally. Now that's great. It works, right? No. It's just it's just actions now. So what we need to do is we need to configure the catch and the finally. And the way we do that is we use this setting called configure run after. So how do we get to that setting? You want to click on the 3 dots on the, let me just zoom in here to make it more easy for you guys. Oh, one more there. So for the catch, I want catch to only run if try has failed, right? If something in my business process has failed, I want to catch it. So I'm going to hit the 3 dots, configure run after, and I don't want to run this if it's successful. I only want to run it if it's failed, if scope has failed, is skipped, or is timed out. That means if something has happened drastically, like a failure in my try, scope is gonna start running. So I hit done there, and we know that this is saved correctly. When we see this red arrow with the little exclamation point here, it tells me that there's something configured in the run after. It doesn't tell me what, but it tells me that there's something there. Now, excuse me. So now finally, again, if you remember back to the slides, finally we want to run regardless. If try is successful, if try has failed, if the catch even has run, it doesn't matter. We want to run finally no matter what. So again, configure run after, and we're gonna put every single one of them on because we want to run finally no matter what. We have try, catch, finally. How can we test this? How can I show you guys that this works? If I hit save here and just confirm everything's gonna be good, but how can I show that catch is going to run if try has failed, and finally is going to run regardless? Well, some of you might say, hey, you can use a terminate action, right? Terminate's going to work, right? If I go in here and I put terminate, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this one before, but terminate here, this will terminate the flow. The problem is that this isn't gonna work on catch. You're gonna try to use this, and this is gonna skip right over catch. It's gonna skip right over finally. And the reason is because terminate terminates the processing. It does not keep going. So you know what we need to do? We do not want to use this terminate. But how can we trigger how can we force an error if we need to? Well, I'm going to show you a very simple way, and it uses variables. So let's take a look here. If I can spell variable right, that's okay. So initialize variable. I'm just going to rename it to error or force error. Yeah, that makes more sense. So I'll just put force. I cannot spell. Okay, so I'm going to make this an integer. An integer is basically a whole number, so it's expecting a 1, 2, 3, 0, whatever. But what I'm going to do is in here. Now again, if you want to use this little pattern here, this is a very cool pattern where if something that I don't want to initialize, I want to set it. If I hit variables here, I want to set that variable. So I want to set variable. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put error. Now how can I trigger this error? Here we go. So if I click on enter in the value here, I'm going to use an expression, not a very complicated one. It's literally just a Boolean or a true false expression. I'm just saying false. Now, when I say false here, I don't know why I did that, but false here, so now it's a Boolean value. If I save this, this is gonna trigger an error, because basically what's gonna happen is it's gonna try to put that false value into a number, which doesn't make any sense. So that's exactly why it failed. And as we can see here, you get bad request, the variable force error of type integer, which is the number, cannot be initialized or updated with value of type Boolean, which is true false. It only supports type integer. Makes sense. But you know what? Now we can trigger an error. So why would you want to do this? Now look, see, catch ran now because it runs only if try has failed, and scope finally has run successfully as well, and that's good because it's supposed to run regardless if it's failed or not. So now you know how to use a variable if you need to force an error. Again, only use this if you need to force an error. If your flow is throwing errors and that's expected, then you don't need to do this. But if there is something that is happening, it shows success, but you know it's an error for a certain reason, you can add that into like a condition and then set this variable right after if it's true, right? Because then your flow is going to fail and you can do your processing. You can do your catch, you can do your finally, whatever you need to do. You can handle that error. So now we're going to go back to the actual use case. This was just kind of like a little bonus tip for you guys. I wanted to show, because, excuse me, I wanted to show how you can force an error because it's come up a lot in the community and I just wanted to share my knowledge of how I've been doing it. Now, if the chat, if anyone can let me know in the chat, if you have a better way to throw an error, let me know for Power Automate. If you know a better way to throw an error rather than using what I just showed, let me know. So let me know. Now let's go back to the use case here. So again, I said I was going to start right from scratch. So I'm going to go from an automated flow. Now I'll just put. Don't forget to use hashtag Scottish Summit 2021 on Twitter and maybe even screenshot what we're doing here. So let's do a Scottish Summit 2021. My error handling. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna do when a new response is submitted, just like how the other flow was. So I'm gonna create that. Pick that form. I only have so that's the dev request form. Make sure. Yep. So now I just have to add that other step. It should add it automatically. It should. That'd be awesome. Microsoft Forms, get response details. That's the unique one. Dev request form. I'm just going to use the response ID up there. There we go. So now that's going to, very simple so far, right? I want to have a variable for all the successful emails and a variable for all the unsuccessful or the invalid emails. So let's do that. So if I just do, oh man, this keyboard. I blame the keyboard. Variable. So if I want to do initialize variable, and you know what? I don't want to type variable again, so I'm just gonna copy that to my clipboard before I lose it. So this is gonna be, I'm just gonna put valid emails. Actually, I'd make things simple for later. I'm just gonna put valid. I know what's going on. I'm only using two variables here, so it needs to be an array because I want to assign it to an array. So now, what do I want to do here? I don't want to do anything else. I really want to rename it though. So, size variable valid emails. Now I can do that clipboard. I can go there. Initialize variable. I can go invalid emails. Okay. I do want to follow the same schema structure type thing, so I'll put invalid. And then this is going to be an array, same as the other one. So now I got my two variables. So if you guys can see where I'm kind of going with this, I'm going to have a valid array and an invalid array. So that way I know, and in the flow will know, what email is valid and what's not. And I can kind of assign it to each variable. So now you're probably asking, hey, where's, try catch finally? Where are those things at? Well, they're coming up now. And the reason why is because you can't put, I wish you could, you cannot put, yeah, see, initialize variable cannot be on the top level. When it is at the top, so it's very confusing, you just can't put variables inside a scope. Very unfortunate. I think it would be awesome. Now my try, now I want to try something, right? So what am I going to try? So it's kind of going to be like the same as the other flow, where I want to basically do a compose, right? I need to separate the emails. The big long string of emails, I need to separate them. So compose, I'm going to put split emails. So now I'm splitting those emails. I got to do the expression though. So again, very simple expression. Split, and then I gotta put my parentheses, and then dynamic content in between the parentheses there, and then I'm gonna go email address of users. So that's that question, that the answer. This is actually the answer. So now if I head back to the very end of my expression and I do a comma, it's going to tell me there the parameter is expecting my separator. Now I do the double or the single quotes, and then my separator is the semicolon, which I'm going to add there. I like to copy the expression so I can paste it into the comments section after, in case somebody comes in here and wants to read this nice long string. Okay, so got that there. Now I can add my loop. So if I go here, condition, apply to each loop. Now I want to apply to each split email. So let's actually even put that in here. Apply to each email. And I made it plural, so let's get rid of that S. There we go. On to the next part. So inside each email, like what do I want to do with each email? Now I want to basically do the same thing. So I do Office 365. There's Office 365 users right there. And I'm going to get user profile v2 profile. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm going to basically just pass in the current item. Now how am I going to do that? So like which one is it? It's down here. Current item. I'm basically saying the current item, the current email within this loop. I want to get that I'm going to search that person in my Office 365. So let's do that. So then after that, well, I know that this action fails if the user does not exist in my organization. So what I need to do is I need to have something down here. I'm going to add my catch right here. So if I rename this, this is my catch. So this is I'm going to catch any errors from here because I know that this is the action that's going to fail. So if I hit configure run after and I actually go has failed, has skipped, and has timed out, now this scope catch is going to run only if those things happen. If it's failed, if it's timed out, or if it's skipped, we're going to run the catch. So what does that mean? So what do I want to do in the catch? Very simple. I'm just going to assign, or I'm going to append. So if I type in variable, my favorite word to type today. I just did it wrong again, but at least the AI knows what I'm talking about. So I want to set, or not a set, sorry, I want to append. I'm going to append, which means add to, right? I want to add to the end of the array. So this is going to be the invalid. So if I go append to array variable dash invalid emails. Okay, and then what am I going to append to it? The current item. There we go, current item. This. Well, we're going to utilize a really cool feature called parallel branching. So what this is going to do is I'm going to click that. And here, let me show you how I got that again. So when you have two actions down, see how there's a plus in the middle here? When you click on that, you can add an action, or you can add a parallel branch. When you add a parallel branch, it looks like this. Now you have two branches, right? Now it's going to go down the same way if the configure run after is set properly. So what happens here is, what's going to happen is now this is going to be if it's successful, right? So if it's successful, what do I want to do? I want to add them to the group, right? So if I type in, it's in Office 365 groups action right here. So now I'm going to add the member to the group. So now this is only going to run, or this action is only going to run if get user profile is successful. So again, I'm going to put current item in here. And then that's going to basically add them to the group, which gives them the licensing and access to the environment. Perfect. Now, what do I want to do after this? I also want to, because right, I have those two variables, right? So I want to assign those variables. I spelled it right that time. Okay, so I want to not set. I want to append, right? Append. Okay. So now I want to append, and I want to put valid, just so I know what's going on. And then valid, and what do I want to add in here? You guessed it, current item. So now I got current item in there. So now this looks pretty good. I think I'm almost done, really. So that's awesome. Now I have two variables that are going to have the invalid emails and the valid emails. So that's awesome. Now this is the end. What do I do now? I have those two variables. What do I want to do? Well, we're kind of done inside the loop. We don't need to use the loop anymore. I have one last thing, and that's finally, right? So I want to have a finally block. So let's put finally in here. I go to my clipboard again. I have my try there. I'm going to rename it to scope finally. Now this is something I always forget when I use finally, and that's to configure the run after, because I always do finally last. And I'm like, yeah, it's gonna work, right? We don't need to do anything else, but no, we do. We need to put we need to make sure it runs. So that's doing the configure run after right here, all of them. So yeah. So what do I want to do in here? I basically want to, oh, my wrong one, sorry. So what do I want to do in my finally? I want to send the email to the person who submits the form and let them know who's been added to the group. So what do I need to do? I don't want to send an email if nobody's been added, right? So what I want to do is I want to have a compose shape here. And the compose is just going to help me do some expressions, very simple ones. Don't be scared, don't be scared. Okay, stay with me, stay with me. I'm going to compose, I'm just going to get the length of valid emails, and that's all I need to do there. And I'm going to copy this because I know I'm going to need it later. So what do I want to do here? I'm basically, how do I get the length, right? How do I get the length of this array? Well, very simple. Expression. Again, don't be scared, don't be scared. So it's a length expression. See how easy that is? Length. So I can just click on length here, and then I got my parameters. My parameters expecting a collection or a string. Okay, so if it's a collection or an array, it's going to tell me how many are in that array. And if it's a string, it's going to tell me how long the string is. You know, it's 5 characters, 10 characters, regardless, right? So what I want to do here is I want to pass in the array. So I'm testing the valid ones. I want to click on valid. I want to hit OK. Now that's going to check the length. Now, if the length, now this is where condition comes in, because if the length, condition, if valid emails, if valid emails, okay. So if valid emails exist, I'm basically just going to grab the outputs of that, the valid, and I'm going to put is greater than 0. So if there's at least one email in that array, it's going to send this email, which is exactly what I want. So I'm going to hit add here. I'm going to send an email. So I'll do send email v2 right there. Outlook Office. So now let's do this, and I'll put valid. Yeah, let's put valid in there. So I'm going to put 2, and I'm going to put the dynamic content, and I'm going to put the responder's email. That's going to be whoever's submitting the form. And subject is going to be users have been added. And in the body here, I'm just going to put users added, and then I'm going to put the array, and for some reason the array does not show up in here in the dynamic content. I'll show you a way around that right now. So you can use an expression to get basically anything you want. So I can do a variables expression, and all I need to do is pass in the name of the variable. And this is why I named it valid, because you know what? That's easy to remember. And just to confirm, I'm going to go up here, and it's valid. So that's perfect. So now I'm basically just showing that variable there using an expression, because it's not letting me do the other one for some reason. So now I can copy this, copy to clipboard, because now I'm going to need, this is great. Now I have the valid emails, now I need the invalid emails. So what's an easy way to do this? Again, I love branching, right? Branching is my favorite thing. So I'm going to branch right here, and I think I branched too early, but that's okay. I'm just going to add a condition, because I know I need that. But up above here, I'm going to do the compose again. And I think I added that to my clipboard, didn't I? I did. I did add it. That's perfect. Okay, so now if I go like this, and then if I just go over to valid and I put invalid emails, now that makes sense. If I go here, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, okay, so now I need length. And I need the length of what? I need the length of invalid. Perfect. So now, let's make sure I've been over. Yep. So now, in this condition here, I can just put if, oh wait a minute. How did I name that one over there? If valid, yeah. So if invalid. And then basically outputs of invalid is greater than 0. And then I want to add in here, if it is true, if there is some invalid emails in there, then what do I want to, or yeah, what do I want to do? I do not want to send a valid email. I want to send a invalid email. Basically the same thing, but I do not want to word it like that. Users have been added. Nope, users have not been added. And I'm just going to copy this because I'm going to copy it down here. Users have not been added, and I'll even give them some guidance. Please check the users' emails and submit again. I do not want to send valid. I want to do invalid. It's not showing up again, so what do? We use the variables expression and pass in using single quotes invalid and hit OK. Now, I believe that is it. Is this going to work? Is this going to work? That's the real question. So I got my flow there. If I go to the form, luckily I have some users over here. What am I going to do? So I got my Visual Studio Code here with a bunch of users. I'm going to copy that. I'll paste it in here. And I'm going to hit submit. Perfect. So in our flow run here, we can see that we do have an error in the try. That's expected if we check it in here. And we check user profile. So yeah, this one exists. Let's go next failed. So this one failed. This is Jack Dorsey. Yeah, he does not exist in my tenant. Either does Mark Zuckerberg, and Elon Musk definitely does not. Wish he did, but he doesn't. So now, if we go scroll down, in our finally, we should only be sending an email. Yep, condition if valid emails. So now we're sending an email with these users added, which I will show in a second is true. And then the users that are not added, if invalid, check this in here, scroll down. And the users that have not been added are Jack Dorsey, yeah, Mark Zuckerberg, and Elon Musk. That is awesome. So now if I go back to my dev group here, if I refresh this, I should see the 3 new users, Alex, Flow Support, and Demo User. Perfect. So that's really how you do error handling for a simple use case like that. I just want to go over some of the key takeaways. So first of all, configure run after on scopes. Something I always forget. I always forget, especially on the finally. I always forget to do the finally. Every time. Make sure you always do configure run after on your catch for as has failed, skipped, or timed out, and finally you should have all of them checkmarked. Next, we want to, I kind of went over the forcing and the error and the terminate. Again, you want to use a variable to throw an error. If you want to keep the processing going, if you want to completely terminate the process, hence the word terminate, you want to use terminate. Handle, well, save money, monitor flows, and sending alerts. And you know what? Less stress, really. That's why I do it. Less stress, and then I don't have to worry. I build the flow. I have the error handling. I let it go, and I'll just wait. If I get an alert, that's when I know it failed. So again, thank you all for attending my session. I really hope you enjoyed it. I really hope somebody learned something. If you had learned anything, please let me know in the chat. And if you have any questions, hopefully I've been answering them throughout the session. And I hope everyone has a great day and checking out all the great sessions. I know I can't wait. It's one of the biggest events I was waiting for. So awesome, and I hope that this event goes to next year for in person. I really hope so. I hope to meet all of you. Have a great rest of your day. Josh Cook, I'm out. Thank you.